So, as every great YouTuber does, we make tier lists to farm reactions, and that's what I'm going to do. If you disagree, feel free to leave something in the comments, or if you don't even know why something is somewhere, feel free to ask me in the comments as well. I'm not going to go into 100% detail of why, but I am going to explain what my tiers mean. So, tier 1 are just the best decks of the format. They will be ordered. Sorry, they won't really be ordered, but there is a best deck of the format. Tier 1.5 are decks that can be in tier 1, however they're just so heavily hated out by one or more of the decks, so they can't, if they can't keep up with Numemon, but they can keep up and deal with everything else, they'll be in tier 1.5. Tier 2 are still tournament winners and still top 16, top 8 contestants, however they lack something either in speed or consistency or removal. Tier 3 like multiple things. You can still see them in like top 16 and even sometimes even winning events. A perfect example is Gallantmon. Their archetype is really bad. They lack a couple other things. However, they can still put up results every once in a while. And then Locals Warrior are just bad decks. Nothing really more to say. Once you see the decks in that column, you will understand why they are there, and you'll understand why it's called Locals Warrior. So to start it off, I am just going to throw the 4 decks, in my opinion, that are tier 1. I think most people will agree with that. Numemon being the number 1, the best deck in the format regardless. It can abuse Ukos, level 5, 6, and 7 slots, or it's extremely versatile of whatever they want to do. They have insane removal and de-digivolve. They have numerous ways to neg your board, and they have infinite floaters. Deck is just insane. Second is Magnamon. This is blue Magnamon base, so like Davis and Vmon. I know some people will disagree with this placement and think it should be lower. However, I don't think there's enough decks that can deal with it just yet, especially the Magnamon X Antibody. And if you want to, my main concern with this deck isn't even the level 6, it's this fucker right here. ST Magnamon is fucking broken. If you disagree with me, you're wrong, to be honest with you. The card, I wouldn't be surprised if it got hit, to be completely honest with you. The next tier 1 contestant is Vaccine. If more vaccine cards get printed that are more powerful, Patamon and Messenger of Hope will abuse it. I think that's very unhealthy for the game personally, and also they can, turn 2 Mega into Venusmon to just lock you out, and hell, even possibly turn 2 or 3 Ruin mode, and you just can't play the game anymore. Our 4th and final one is Mirage. Mirage is kind of crazy. It has such good consistency, and its line is just so good all the way up. It did lose Bukamon a couple sets back, however, it kind of repaired itself with its level 3 and level 4 jamming that we recently got. No support this set. Actually, it did get a new level 5 to unsuspend. I don't think that's crazy good for it, though. I don't think it really needs it. It does have easy ways against Magnamon with unblockable. So, Mirage is just a go-to deck, in my opinion. So, and now we will go through the order that they are listed down here. So, Blue Lord is comfortably tier 2 to tier 3. It really just depends on what the top meta is looking like. I think it's right now around tier 3, just because there's so much DP minus that it can't really survive, and also there are red decks in tier 1.5, such as Red Hybrid, spoiler, that, will just Crimson Blaze you and, laugh at you. Black War Greymon, you're a Locals Warrior. It's just, the deck is so bad. Its removal is mediocre. It's extremely inconsistent. It needs like 3 Tamers on the field, plus its entire line, plus its X Antibody line, and it is your opponent to turn their brain off and close their eyes. Red Hybrid is 1.5. Right before Numemon really spiked and right before Magnamon came out, Red Hybrid, in my opinion, was tier 1 and one of the decks to beat. It can't really keep up with Numemon. I think it's about a 70-30 in favor of Numemon most of the time. However, it can't really get around Magnamon, and it can't really deal with, things like Ruin mode. So, but if some of these decks get altered or nerfed or limited or, things get changed, I could see Red Hybrid going back up. Gallantmon is tier 3 for sure. I think it's better than Bloomlord. It has a really good matchup into Numemon, which is how it won I think it won a EU regional or EU finalist way back when. And by way back when, I mean like a couple months ago. But other than that, it just gets shit on by everything else, and it's also extremely inconsistent. If that runner got matched with anything else, it would have probably lost right there and not make it to the finals. Machine Dramon, I actually think it's better than Locals Warrior, funny enough. It just has extreme, it's just super, super slow. And that's really its only issue. I know it gobbles up every support for every other deck. but it kind of just gets the same exact thing that I had before. You have like 4 reboot inheritables, you have like 5 blocker inheritables, etc., etc. And then next set we get another Chaos Dramon, which gives it another form of removal protection. So it pretty just locks you out. Beals, I think, is actually tier 2. I think Beals is a lot better than people think. It's one of those decks that doesn't really care about what you're doing. It's just going to do what it wants to do. And it has good removal just locked into its kit already. Like, you're going to mill things and pop things. Shine, I think, is also tier 2. It has a really good high roll. I think it can be good. However, it just has really, really, really bad inconsistent issues. It has really great removal and really good high roll and like speed. However, it just falls apart if you don't see certain pieces. If you don't see your BT12 shine, you just kind of die. Alphamon, I think you're tier 3. I don't know if you're better. You're probably better than all these decks just because of the deck support. However, I do separate those decks later on. Belf, I think you're tier 3. You don't really have anything. You can't really compete with anything above you. I do think you're about there. I'm going to try to sort these. Don't really take the sorting in the row, you know, at face value. There, you know, it's kind of a little biased. I think this is better than this, you know, things like that. Royal Knights, I think you're the best tier 3. Between tier 2 and tier 3, you're just super slow. You give a lot of memory, and giving a lot of memory to anything above you is extremely, extremely bad for you. And you're really slow, so you just kind of lose out on a lot of deck matchups. D-Brigade, I think, is actually tier 1.5, not gonna lie. This deck is actually, unironically, a little good. I know D-Brigade is a really big meme with like Crimson Blaze, Death X, and Road Mode. However, the new support to DP buff it really, really gave it what it needed, in my opinion. And some of your Commandramons can get up to like 6-7k, right? And that obviously that still gets hit by a Crimson Blaze, but I think it's a little better. I'd be okay putting it there. Lugamon, I think you're tier 2. You just are super inconsistent, and you kind of just do weird things. Like, yeah, you can OTK on turn 2, but the stars have to align, and God has to, you know, kiss your forehead for it. Wargreymon, your locals warrior. Exact same thing I said about Black War Grey. Apply it to Wargreymon. Not going to go over it that much. So the Apoclymon, this is like Omnizoo, like hard play level 5s, go into Omnimon, go into Alter B, things like that. You're tier 3. I think you're kind of a memer, but I think you're better than Greymon, that's for sure. You're not as good as Royal Knights, that's for sure, or Alphamon. And Belphamon and Apoclymon can, like, a lot of people just run them in the same deck. Imperial, you are tier 1.5. I think it just gets hated out by Numemon. I think it actually has a really good matchup against Magnamon and Vaccine, just because of Partition. Matchup knowledge is definitely needed for the Magnamon matchup, but yeah. Tyrant, 1.5. Same thing, you're just a big redirect. It kind of has the same strategy as Magnamon. However, it's not as fast, and it can't get as many checks in. Anyway, yeah, Tyrant, just same thing as Magnamon. Big redirects, but slow and can be inconsistent. Dex, I think you are tier 2 right now. I know a lot of people are going to say Alpha and this deck are the same. However, I think Collision is a very, very strong mechanic, and this deck just gets crazy next set. So I'm not really evaluating these on next set. I am trying to evaluate them on EX6. It is 2 days after release. So, Pulsemon, you're a locals warrior. Anything that you have to play around your security is kind of shit, because your opponent can just kill 2 of your security, and then your plan sucks. Myotismon, locals warrior. The deck has always been bad. Its effects just aren't that strong. And it has to do with playing around your trash and your hand and your field and your tamers. Too many pieces. Rapidmon, this is like bunnies. I think you're 1.5. I think Rapidmon just gets hated out too easily. I think it's really consistent. Double Typhoon's a crazy good card. Mega Gargo Ace are really good. Rapidmon X is really good. However, I think you actually know how to play. You have to actually have the matchup knowledge and know how to play the deck to actually compete with anything around in this area. Lilithmon, you're tier 3. You're okay. You're kind of like Beals in the fact that you just do what you want to do, but you're just extremely slow at doing that. So anything above you is just going to OTK you or kill you before you do. Not reading that. It's basically the same thing. Leopardmon I actually think is tier 2. I actually think Leopardmon and Leopardmon X go kind of crazy. Bottom decking and bouncing are probably some of the strongest removal options. Bottom decking obviously better. And with things like Cherubi Ace and Leomon, the deck kind of gets going. I actually think Leo is actually tier 2. I think Leo and Heavy Leo specifically are really slept on. I think if someone could combine Heavy Leo, Leopardmon X, and Cherubi Ace into a deck, it becomes really fucking crazy. Fortitude is, in my opinion, one of the strongest keywords in the game. I think it just needs a little bit more speed. A little bit more speed and maybe a little bit other protection like bouncing. Because, you know, Mirage exists, so. Leviamon, I actually am tempted to put this in Locals Warrior just because all the other decks just kind of just shit on it. I think it's better than most of these decks, so I'll put it here. Is Leviamon better than Royal Knights? Does it deserve a tier 2 spot? I'll give it a tier 2 spot or tier 3 spot. Only because all these decks have fucking crazy protection, or they're just so fast. Leviamon just gives them 8 memory and you just kind of fall over. So like giving 8 memory to a red hybrid player, they're just going to play 4 Tamers, play an Uko and Raising, and say pass, and then you're going to give them a fuck ton of memory again, and they're going to kill you. Same thing with Nume. They're just going to keep hatching and keep pushing out and just kill you over and over again. Diva, I think, is actually really good, tier 2. I know I say really good and then put them in tier 2. Tier 1 and tier 1.5 are kind of separated by certain aspects of their game plan and like how powerful their cards are. So if you're in tier 2, I think you're pretty good, right? Like if you buy into a tier 2 deck, I don't think anyone would yell at you or disagree with you. I think Divas is probably one of the best tier 2, but it's not close to tier 1.5. That's the thing. Diaboromon, your Locals Warrior, is just, I'm going to Crimson Blaze you, then stare at you. I'm going to Ruin Mode and stare at you. Keep in mind, a lot of the below decks, like tier 2 and below, they just get hated out so badly. Like, oh, you're an on-deletion deck? Well, Mirage is going to fuck you. Oh, you're like a Board Swarm deck? Vaccine and Numemon are going to fuck you. It's super hard to get around this tier 1 currently. Mastamon, I think you're tier 3. You're just super inconsistent. You're a DNA deck. What can you do? Jessamon, I think, is tier 2. I think it's actually pretty high tier 2. Jessamon kind of just OTKs you out of nowhere, no matter what. It just has an inconsistency issue and a removal issue. If it had more wide range removal, not just attacking into unsuspended, and if it had or trainings could pick up Sistermons and its entire line, it'd be really good. I know we have Master Disciple, but it's not trainings. Ragna, I think, is better than Mast, but still tier 3. It's still a DNA deck that has extreme inconsistency issues. Not gonna rate that because I already did Rapid Bond. Angels, tier 2 for sure. I don't really have a lot of testing knowledge for Angels, but it can run Patamon, and Messenger of Hope, so I'm sure it can be abused to an extent. Shakamon, I think you're high tier 3. It's kind of a weird deck. I think you have to know the deck like inside and out to actually do anything. Demon Lords, I think you're tier 2. I think you're there. I think everything appears better and has contentions with 1.5. Yeah. I think that's my tier list, guys. Go ahead and screenshot it if you'd like. This is a permanent tier list on the Tier Maker site. So if you want to make your own, feel free to go make your own. If you disagree, feel free to put it in the comments. Maybe you have a better opinion than me. We'll see. But I'll catch y'all later.